that, and I'm younger than Putin, you know? No, believe me, this is important. He doesn't have too much time, you know? Not too much time. Yes, God bless, not too much time.
And of course, the same way you had Kaja Kallas standing up to the Trump regime, you had Zelensky right there standing up to, Trump and others when Trump, right before the Munich Security Conference took place, Trump was like, Zelensky better get moving. Russia wants to make a deal. What's going on there? Russia does not want to. Russia's never made any move ever to indicate it wants to make a deal. All you and Putin have been trying to do is make a fake deal with each other over $12 trillion in fake economic cooperation when Russia's total GDP is $2 trillion a year. But here's what Trump said. Play this clip.
Ukraine negotiations, do you still demand Zelensky has to hold elections before summer?
Well, Zelensky's going to have to get moving. Russia wants to make a deal, and Zelensky's going to have to get moving. Otherwise, he's going to miss a great opportunity. He has to move.
If you're stressed about getting out of debt, it's go time. Seriously, this is one of those moments where timing actually matters. Done with Debt is one of the best I've seen at navigating debt relief. 2025 was a record year. They enrolled over $102 million in debt for our listeners and others. Here's why I'm telling you this now. According to the Federal Reserve's latest survey, many banks have tightened their standards. Right now may be your best window to negotiate settlements before lenders tighten further. Done with Debt tracks credit card and loan company behavior. They're experienced at knowing who is negotiating and when, and what it takes to get you the biggest reduction possible. And whether you're carrying $10,000 or $500,000 in debt, this may be the best chance you'll get all year. Do not wait for lenders to tighten up their policies. Here's what you do. Schedule a free consultation. There's no pressure, and it only takes a few minutes. Share who you owe, and they'll tell you if this is the moment you could see a major reduction in your debt. Imagine waking up without that weight on your shoulders and doing it without taking out another loan or filing for bankruptcy. Done with Debt helps you through the debt relief process so you keep more of your paycheck every month. Go to donewithdebt.com right now. That's donewithdebt.com.
And then in this Munich Security Conference, we saw lots of leaders standing up, whether it was French President Emmanuel Macron, whether it was Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, whether it was Zelensky, whether it was Kallas, whether it was Stubb, and others. Here's what French President Macron had to say. Play this clip.
In order to be much more independent. But when I speak about Europe becoming a power, I don't speak about France or Germany becoming a power. I speak about Europe. So we have to think and act as Europeans, I would say by design. And this is what we have to do now. And if this time of rearmament is a time of dis-synergies, of separation, or national power, it would be a huge mistake.
More from Macron right here.
Europe has to learn to become a geopolitical power. It was not part of our DNA. We conceived ourselves as a political construction to provide peace. We delivered. Second, a single market to provide growth and prosperity. We delivered. Now we have to reform it in this new order. In this new geopolitical environment, Europe has to become a geopolitical power. It's ongoing, but we have to accelerate and clearly to deliver all the components of a geopolitical power.
One more clip from French President Emmanuel Macron. Let's play it.
But let's speak about our homework behind closed doors and let's deliver. But let's provide a positive image of ourselves and let's be proud of ourselves, because this is what our fellow citizens need.
And here's what Germany Chancellor Merz has to say. And he said, look, our country, Germany, in the 20th century, we went down alone. We did it this way, basically the way the U.S. is doing it right now. And that was a dreadful mistake in the 20th century. Play this clip.
We Germans know a world in which might makes right would be a dark place. Our country has gone down this path in the 20th century until the bitter and dreadful end. Today, we embark on a different a better path.
More from German's Chancellor Merz right here. Let's play it.
If there had been a unipolar moment after the fall of the Berlin Wall, a unipolar moment in history, it has long passed. The United States' claim to leadership has been challenged and possibly lost.
And here's what he had to say as well. Let's play this clip right here.
100 Millionen Einwohner. Die Welt hat 8 Milliarden, also 7,7 Milliarden Einwohner wohnen nicht in Amerika. Also wir können, glaube ich, auf dieser Welt ein großes Potenzial nutzen, ausschöpfen, das wir bis jetzt nicht genug genutzt haben.
What was interesting, too, as you had Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, talking about decoupling from the United States, that Europe needs to just entirely become not dependent at all on the U.S., look elsewhere. The U.S. wants to be isolated, let him be isolated. But you had the U.S. NATO ambassador, Matt Whitaker, there at the Munich Security Conference, and he was asked by the moderator, what's your response to the German chancellor talking about decoupling? In other words, just getting rid of the United States totally because the U.S. is hostile, it's adversarial. And watch how sheepish Whitaker is. He's like, oh, that's just what the think tanks are saying. And then the moderator's like, that's not the think tank. That's the leader of Germany saying that. And Whitaker's like, oh, that's not going to happen. It happened already. It's done because of you and Trump and your despicable regime of authoritarians. Here, let's play it.
I got distracted by the whole chancellor thing.
Do you worry that the Chancellor Merz has said that basically we're going to decouple? I mean, are we going to decouple from
we're not. No, we're not.
The U.S. and Europe?
No. And I think this is a kind of a think tank sort of theoretical. I push back on this every single day.
This is the German Chancellor that said this. It's not a think tank.
I didn't say he was perfect. I just said he's better.
And while the Munich Security Conference was taking place and Marco Rubio was too busy to even show up at the main Ukraine meeting, so the meeting was abruptly canceled, what was Donald Trump doing? He was speaking at Fort Bragg in North Carolina and talking about how he doesn't like stealth boats because they look ugly and he wants to bring back World War II battleships and commission those instead of stealth ships and instead of aircraft carriers. And while Donald Trump was taking his visit to and from North Carolina, he held a press conference where he talked about regime change in Iran. Let's play it.
Do you want regime change in Iran? Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time. So let's see what happens. In the meantime, we have tremendous power has arrived, and additional power, as you know, and other carriers going out.
And a reporter said, though, I'm confused. You said, Donald, that you totally obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities last June. So if you totally obliterated it, why are you saying that you need them to stop the program? You said you obliterated it. Well, obliteration. And then you and the regime got mad and attacked anyone who didn't say or who said it wasn't obliterated. So I guess you were lying back then, right? Here's what Donald Trump said.
that the Iranian nuclear sites have been totally obliterated, what's left to go after?
Well, you could get whatever the dust is down there. That's really the least of the mission. If we do it, that would be the least of the mission. But we'd probably grab whatever's left. It has been obliterated, as you know.
More from French President Emmanuel Macron saying Europe now needs nuclear deterrence. Europe needs to build up its nuclear arsenal. You see what Donald Trump has done to the entire world order here? Play this clip.
We are conceiving, and in a few weeks' time I will detail that, but we engaged a strategic dialogue, obviously with Chancellor Merz, but with few European leaders, in order to see how we can articulate our national doctrine, which is guaranteed and controlled by the Constitution, with special cooperation, common exercises, and common security interests with some key countries. This is exactly what we are doing for the first time in history with Germany. And I think this dialogue is important by itself, but it's important because this is a way to articulate nuclear deterrence in a holistic approach of defense and security. And this is a way to create convergence in our strategic approach and strategic culture between Germany and France.
And here's what Finnish President Stubb has to say. Let's play it.
Then we have to ask ourselves the question, for demographic reasons, for economic reasons, for geopolitical reasons, it's going to be the global south that decides the next world order.
And then finally, you have, in response to Kaja Kallas, the EU foreign policy chief, you had the U.S. envoy to the UN, Mike Walls. He says, we need to reform multilateralism. I think that that's what we should do. This is code when he says, we need to reform multilateralism. Do y'all remember the videos I made last January 2025? Not January 2026, January 2025, when Marco Rubio talked about reforming multilateralism to say the poles, multipolar world, needs to be the U.S., Russia, and China. 3 poles defining multilateralism who carve up the world, which I warned. I said that means what the U.S. is saying. Europe belongs to Russia. The Western Hemisphere belongs to the U.S. and all of Asia belongs to China. That's the Trump regime's view. Everything is through that prism. And here, Waltz is once again saying that. Let's play this clip.
So if you focus on the facts and the results, and if we have to reform multilateralism that hasn't been reformed, frankly, in 80 years, then I think that should be welcomed by the world.
So that's what's going on right now at the Munich Security Conference. Let me know what you think, of course. Hit subscribe. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. We're grateful for all of your support. And thank you so much for watching.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.
But lost touch with reality itself. So if we're going to start assigning political labels based on conduct, then let's call things by their proper names. The Republican Party has become the party of fascism, full stop. You know, they have become a party of far-right fascists who are hell-bent on destroying our country and our way of life. And every single time they call us communists, it is nothing more than a projection of their own radicalization. They don't want to talk about that, and they definitely don't want to talk about their higher grocery prices or skyrocketing gas.
World leaders are upset. Let me not make.
Donald Trump is having a disastrous Wednesday. The war is getting worse for him in the United States. The markets are crashing. He's destroyed the economy. So he calls up state regime media, which calls itself Fox, and he starts saying, I'm going to blow the effing shit out of Iran, except he curses, I'm going to blow the effing shit out of them. And then the host from Fox conveys that live on TV. I just got off the phone with the President of the United States who said we're going to blow the effing shit out of them. We're going to beat them the F up. Here, let's play this clip.
In Jordan, President Trump tells Fox News about Iran, we are going to beat the effing S out of them. He went on to say, we'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating. So clearly the United States is going to respond to what the president described as a surprise attack. He says U.S. forces had just minutes to shoot down these incoming Iranian ballistic missiles.
Then this state regime media host says, yes, and Donald Trump repeatedly said, we're going to beat them. I'm going to beat them down. They still want to keep on talking, perhaps, so we may keep on talking, but I'm going to beat the F out of them. I'm going to beat the F out of them. Here, play this clip.
In the Oval Great, in terms of possible talks with the Iranian regime, the president says we're going to let them keep talking. Remember, the Iranians came to President Trump after 13 straight days of U.S. bombing against Iran, asking to meet about the Strait of Hormuz and their broader nuclear ambitions. And those talks are taking place as we speak behind the scenes. And then this surprise attack launched against U.S. forces overnight. And again, President Trump telling Fox News, we are going to beat the effing S out of them, and that U.S. strikes will take place against Iran in response to this surprise attack overnight against U.S. forces in Jordan.
Then Donald Trump says that he had a great conversation with Netanyahu yesterday, and that Netanyahu agrees with him on everything. Netanyahu understands the plan. By the way, Netanyahu will be meeting with Hegseth today. More on what Hegseth was posting in just a moment, but here's what Donald Trump said right before Netanyahu is set to meet with Hegseth. Let's play this clip.
Regime. The president also talked about his meeting yesterday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office. He says it was a great meeting, adding he understands now. It appears that the relationship between President Trump and the Israeli prime minister is strengthening. And again, the president called that meeting in the Oval great. In terms of—
And then more from the state regime media host who talks about his conversation with Donald Trump. And then he talks about how Iran struck the U.S. base in Jordan last night, which we reported first here on the Midas Touch Network. It should also be noted that the United States and Saudi Arabia struck Iranian militias in Iraq, killing about 25, 30 people. I'll get you the latest count in just a moment, but massive strikes on the Iranian militias in Iraq. Let's play this clip.
We'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating. So clearly the United States is going to respond to what the president described as a surprise attack. He says U.S. forces had just minutes to shoot down these incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. The president says he has reviewed video of the shoot down, and it was U.S. forces conducting this operation to defend that area. He said it.
And then this state regime media host says that Donald Trump said the Iran-backed militias in Iraq are a cancer on the world. So Trump says, I am considering powerfully additional warnings against the Iranian proxies after I beat the effing shit out of them. Again, this is how the president of the United States speaks. This is a complete and utter humiliation for us here in the United States as Donald Trump continues to lie and claim he's doing deals with Iran while we have run out of our Patriot interceptors, our THAAD interceptors. Here, let's play this clip.
Shia militias overnight. He says those strikes were coordinated with the Iraqi government. He called these Iran-backed militias a cancer on the world and says he is considering additional warnings against Iranian proxies and their link to the Iranian regime. The president also talked about his meeting yesterday with Israeli Prime Minister Ben.
Now, I want to remind you as well just what happened again yesterday. Iran launched strikes against a U.S. base in Jordan. The same base that about a week ago, there were 3 U.S. service members who were killed in action there. Remember, there was a 4th service member killed in action, or who got killed in Erbil in Iraq. And then the United States and Saudi Arabia launched attacks against Iranian interest in Iraq. This was after Saudi Arabia struck the Sana'a air base in Yemen, which the Houthis control. And then the Houthis struck those 3 refineries in Saudi Arabia, the 3 main refineries in Saudi Arabia, and the pipeline connecting East and West Saudi Arabia. Share this with you right now, posted by Pete Hegseth's so-called Department of War, the Defense Department. Here's what they posted, that this task force embedded with the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Joint Base Pearl Harbor over a 4-day period delivered over 20 custom AI agents to sailors, automating heavy cognitive burdens on the watch floor. Key achievements including collapsing a critical 3-day operational reporting process into just 1 hour, converting critical data into structured briefing slides. I don't know, did AI write that social media post too? But the basic claim is that, look, even though things are not going good with this catastrophic war in Iran, we're building up our AI capabilities. But here's the images that they showed that our service members were discussing apparently at this AI innovation training that was taking place. Zoom in right here about what's on the screen. I need help building an agent to create a war I received. That's one of the prompts on the AI behind our service members right there. Motorcycle accident reports. FIFA free kick wall rules. That's the search history right there. Meanwhile, as I noted at the outset, oil prices once again are surging, up about 7 to 10% on the day. Inflation continues to surge, obviously, as America is in a very dire economic situation, a global economic catastrophe unleashed by Donald Trump's disastrous war, Trump's trade war against the world, the Dow Jones, all the major indices in the United States crashing today, doing horrible as a result of Donald Trump. But most significantly, the American people are suffering right now. No one wants to be involved in these never-ending wars. And Netanyahu is meeting with Hegseth as we speak, talking about, as Donald Trump says, you know, and again, the United States speaks like Nazis at this point. I mean, the language is horrific, is how Donald Trump speaks. We're going to blow the effing S out of them. We're going to blow the shit out of them. We're going to blow their bridges. We're going to blow their power plant. That's not how the United States should ever sound. That's how war criminals sound. And it's absolutely abhorrent to hear the commander in chief and leadership speak like that. It's so absolutely disgusting in my opinion. The Popular Mobilization Forces, that's the Iranian-backed kind of militia groups that are embedded within the Iraqi army, reported a preliminary total of 20 killed and 32 wounded after the U.S.-Saudi strikes hit multiple PMF headquarters across Baghdad, Wasit, Nineveh, Basra, Kirkuk, Karbala, and Diyala. And of course, they've threatened that they will be retaliating against U.S. interests in the region there. The massive escalation right now is taking place. In other words, let me share with you some of the footage that we have as U.S. and Saudi Arabia launch these strikes against the PMF in Iraq. And to be clear, the PMF is recognized within the Iraqi army. It's not like some hidden secret thing. And so this was also a kind of an attack on trying to create division between the Iranian army and kind of the Shiite factions within that army as well. Let me just show you this video right here. We have more footage right here as well from some of these U.S. and Saudi Arabian strikes. Here, let's play it.
Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found pre-alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice the difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on having a great next day without worrying. Look, I won't lie, I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but after giving it a a chance, believe me, it's the real deal. July is packed with barbecues, fireworks, lake weekends, and late nights with friends. Keep the good times rolling into the next day. Drink pre-alcohol before you go out and wake up ready for whatever Sunday brings. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Midas and use the code Midas at checkout for 15% off.
Here are some of the photos coming out of some of the PMF members who were killed by Saudi Arabia and the United States. Saudi Arabia came out with a statement shortly after saying, we don't want escalation. PMF made it very clear they're going to escalate. And between Houthis saying they're going to be escalating against Saudi Arabia, PMF escalating against Saudi Arabia, Trump saying I'm going to blow the effing shit out of Iran, Iran saying we control the Strait of Hormuz, Houthis today in Yemen working with Iran now to do a tolling system in the Bab el-Mandab Strait, very similar to what Iran is doing in the Strait of Hormuz to control the Strait of Hormuz. Iran saying, let's be very clear. We are never going to allow, ever, we will fight to the death before we allow the United States to use the southern route or anybody to use the southern route on the Strait of Hormuz closer to Oman without our permission and consent. It just ain't happening. We're creating a tolling system here, and we're going to work with the Houthis to create a tolling system in the Red Sea to chokehold the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Both the Strait of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandab are going to be locked down in tolling systems. We've been discussing this for a long time here on the Midas Touch Network. That doesn't come as a shock or a surprise to you. But, you know, that's why I still expect the price of oil to hit 125, 150. We're nowhere close to being out of this. It's Donald Trump back to when he was, you know, remember when COVID, it's going to go away in a day. It's going to get better. Easter, it's going to go away. Bend the curve. Things are amazing. Things are great. More on that in a moment, because apparently things are so bad right now in the United States. Our economy is crashing. There's this never-ending war. People are suffering. It's actually never been worse right now for at least recent modern history in the United States. So now Trump and MAGA are talking about the pandemic as a way to distract from the catastrophic war and the catastrophic economy. So catastrophic war to cover up the Epstein files. Now we're going back to their conspiracies about the pandemic in order to cover up the catastrophic war, which is covering up the Epstein files. That's what con artists do. That's what scammers do. It is all this Russian nesting doll of lies and cons to try to distract everybody while they loot and pilfer and do things like you're seeing as well with Trump and Gianni Infantino and the Kushners, who want to create that hold company to sell off the World Cup and sell off pieces to private equity. You heard this, right? At a like $40 billion valuation. And now they're trying to bribe local football federations. We'll give you access to $40 million in funds if you go along and bless our scheme to sell off the World Cup. They literally want to destroy everything that can bring joy by selling it to private equity and selling it to the right-wing oligarchs. That's what they want to do also, while they create this absolute chaos. Now, one thing I'll note as well, and this goes back to our coverage of the Epstein files, right? One of the things that Epstein and Bannon and all these people in Epstein class in Trump's orbit wanted is create chaos, destroy kind of the global order, and then have the oligarchs, while people are fumbling around and attacking each other, loot and pick people's pockets, you know, and ostensibly do things. This wasn't in the files, but like turn FIFA World Cup into a private equity holdco and then sell it off so that they can get their greedy hands on freaking everything. And you know they're getting their greedy hands on children's sports as well. Iran Fars, that's their state media, citing military sources saying we're not giving up control over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, Admiral Brad Cooper, the head of U.S. CENTCOM, told the service members stationed in the Middle East, warn them, you're not allowed to take videos or photos of anything that's happening in these bases. The U.S. already shut down satellite footage of the bases in the Middle East. because we were able to see that Iran was destroying the U.S. bases and equipment and radar systems and early detection warning systems and all of that. And now you have Cooper saying you got to stop posting the videos and stop sending videos home to your family about what's actually happening here because you're emboldening Iran. Really, by actually creating transparency that our service members are sitting targets and are getting killed, and that CENTCOM and Hexit and this despicable Trump regime is out there covering up the casualty numbers. You want to hide that even more? That's completely unacceptable. It is beyond distressing that we have a regime of war criminals right now in charge that's covering up the true casualty amounts right now. I also reported earlier that China is providing multiple, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those man-pad shoulder missiles that will be going to Iran, as well as this is becoming a full-fledged, not just regional war, but a war involving basically the entire world. Now, one of the things we talked about on the Midas Touch account this morning, Republicans want us to memory hole everything Trump did in 2020 while dragging us back into the same tired 2020 culture wars. Fauci, Wuhan, vaccines, communism, because now in 2026, they broke the country and they desperately need a distraction to reinvigorate their base. It's like Vanilla Ice doing Ice Ice Baby on loop over and over and over again, which is an apt comparison because Trump has Vanilla Ice, the only person who's performing now at Mar-a-Lago doing Ice 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 Baby. Things are so bad for Republicans right now that they're like, okay, but we all remember the pandemic, right? When things were good, like when thousands of people were dying every day. So the MAGA Republicans, I'll do a whole other video on this in a moment, bring in Dr. Fauci to testify today before the United States Senate. And their whole idea is to get him for perjury and then to prosecute Fauci. That's their whole big push right here. And so Fauci just invoked the fifth the whole time, knowing that that's their plan. But let me show you what the MAGA Republicans were doing, what this whole thing was. While the American people are like, can you just make life more affordable for us? Can we stop these never-ending wars? Why are you bringing in Fauci? Why are you doing that? No. Who in 2026 seriously is like, we need Fauci? Yes, Fauci. I'll tell you, like Laura Ingraham, who's right behind him. And she acted like she was I kid you not, Laura Ingraham spent this hearing acting as almost though like she was a victim of Fauci and that she was there like looking sad. And she's like, this was weaponized against me. These people are the most pathetic losers. Imagine, call out these losers. These are freaking losers. You've got Senator Moreno to Dr. Fauci. Here's what he goes, who the fuck do you think you are? Who the fuck do you think you, who are these people who talk? This is a MAGA Republican cross-examining Dr. Fauci, like cursing during this hearing so they could get brownie points with the monster creature thing in the Oval Office and get on state regime media Fox. Here, play this clip.
When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
And then part of Moreno's questions is like, stand up right now if you've been victimized by Dr. Fauci. As though this is like the Trump regime covering up the Epstein files and re-traumatizing survivors, right? And Laura Ingraham stands up and she's like, me, I've been victim. Really? The person who was complicit in a settlement for close to $1 billion for defamation of character? You are the victim, Laura Ingraham? Anyway, here, play this clip.
Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyers, not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience.
And this is what they were talking about all morning. They brought on this is what right-wing regime media was trying to push, and this is what the Trump proxies were trying to push all morning. Like, they had Peter Navarro making his rounds, and Peter Navarro was like, hydroxychloroquine. We needed it. I had 1 billion gallons of hydroxychloroquine horse tranquilizers ready to go, and they screwed me. Okay, look. It's 2026, okay? You have Netanyahu meeting with Hegseth. We're in never-ending war. Y'all created this mess right now, this disaster, and this is what you want to talk about? Who the hell are these frickin' people? Here, play this clip.
If it saves lives, that's a beautiful thing. I think history will judge who's right on this debate, but I'd bet on President Trump's intuition on this one because of all the doctors I've talked to and all the scientific papers I've read, and they're about this high.
And then you have Chris Wright, the energy secretary, accusing blue states of scapegoating data centers. This was their other message this morning. This guy sounds like such a weasel too. Why are they demonizing data centers? Data centers actually helps electricity prices go down, not up. Data centers, we all know, reduces. What are you talking about? Do you just think we're all stupid? This whole regime just thinks we're all stupid because they're used to their MAGA hat zombie idiots who are like, yes, daddy, you're my daddy. Your daddy, you're better than my parents, Donald. I mean, whatever the stupid that you heard what he said in Michigan. It's like, I'm better than your parents. They're used to that. But the American people, we're not putting data centers in our backyard and telling us that it makes electricity prices go down. What are you talking about? Here, play this clip.
Blue states have 50% higher electricity prices than red states. And now they figure they've got the perfect scapegoat. It wasn't our bad green policies. It was data centers that did it. Of course, it's total nonsense. The places that develop data centers and new firm generation, those are the places that'll see electricity prices go down, not up.
Well, you've got your hard hat on. I know you're going to go down in the mines with the Kentucky coal miners shortly. Mr. Secretary.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think about all of this. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Hey, before you go, our book, WTF America, is available for pre-order now. It's the story of how we got here and how we fight our way back. To pre-order, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.
Congressmember Jamie Raskin is sending a major warning to those law firms that bent the knee early in the Trump regime and entered into so-called settlement agreements. What were they settling? And settlement arrangements with the Trump regime to do so-called pro bono work. And Jamie Raskin signed and sent a letter to what was once a very prestigious firm. I mean, it was like the Harvard of big law. It was called Skadden. There's a bunch of other firms.
Shalom, giving all praise from Kodash, Shalom to 144,000, and the rest of you elect out there, Shalom to you all. I'm going to entitle this video Isaiah 34 Revisited, and I was inspired to do this video. I'm just going to play it. This is the video I was watching. I'm almost 10 minutes in, put up by GMS, all precepts, 200,000 for 200 million warheads, reward unto her double. So I was watching it, and I went to Isaiah 34, and I said, let me go ahead and do a video and just play Isaiah 34 in not the King James but the NLT, and I may just let it play through. I may stop and say a few words on it, but watch the video that I just showed you. The 200,000 warheads, reward unto her double. So it's not going to be long at all.
Yes, the Lord will offer a great sacrifice in the rich city of chapter 34. Come here and listen, O nations of the earth. Let the world and everything in it hear my words. For the Lord is enraged against the nations. His fury is against all their armies. He will completely destroy them, bringing about their slaughter. Their dead will be left unburied, and the stench of rotting bodies will fill the land. The mountains will flow with their blood. The heavens above will melt away and disappear like them, bringing about their slaughter. Their dead will be left unburied, and the stench of rotting bodies will fill the land. The mountains will flow with their blood. The heavens above will melt away and disappear like a rolled-up scroll. The stars will fall from the sky, just as withered leaves and fruit fall from a tree.
Those stars are the warheads, 200 million warheads. They look like stars falling from the heavens.
When my sword has finished its work in the heavens, then watch. It will fall upon Edom, the nation I have completely...
So this chapter is dedicated to Edom, the Edomites. Now I'm going to ask a question to Google.
Destroyed. The sword of the Lord is drenched with blood. It is covered with fat as though it had been used for killing lambs and goats and rams for a sacrifice.
Yeah, because the Edomites are going to be sacrificed along with 2/3 of Israel, along with the other nations. As I've said in previous video, in the King James Version, Isaiah 34 refers to the land as a land of Edom. So this is actually the land that was first called Canaan, then America, then now it's called, spiritually it's called Sodom and Egypt, but it's actually called the land of Edom. And the Most High, this land, which is 3,000 miles from east to west and 2,000 from north to south, is nothing but a what do you call this? An altar. So the prophets are on the altar. They're condemning this place. So when Esau said, "Well, why don't you leave the country?" We're here to condemn this place and to experience the curses. So you can't tell us to leave the country as a fulfillment of prophecy. America was set up for the sole purpose of our punishment. So Esau doesn't understand.
Yes, the Lord will offer a great sacrifice in the rich city of Bozrah.
So these Edomites are going to be likened unto sacrificial animals, burnt sacrifices. So this is going to be a ritualistic thing.
Make a mighty slaughter in Edom. The strongest will die, veterans and young men too. The land will be soaked with blood and the soil enriched with fat. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, the year when Edom will be paid back for all it did to Israel. The streams of Edom will be filled with burning pitch, and the ground will be covered with fire. This judgment on Edom will never end. The smoke of its burning will rise forever. The land will lie deserted from generation to generation. No one will live there anymore. It will be haunted by the horned owl, the hawk, the screech owl, and the raven. For God will bring chaos and destruction to that land. It will be called the land of nothing, and its princes soon will all be gone. Thorns will overrun its palaces, nettles will grow in its forts. The ruins will become a haunt for jackals and a home for ostriches. Wild animals of the desert will mingle there with hyenas, their howls filling the night. Wild goats will bleat at one another among the ruins, and night creatures will come there to rest. There the owl will make her nest and lay her eggs. She will hatch her young and cover them with her wings. And the vultures will come, each one with its mate. Search the book of the Lord and see what he will do. He will not miss a single detail. Not one of these birds and animals will be missing, and none will lack a mate, for the Lord has promised this. His Spirit will make it all come true. He has surveyed and divided the land and deeded it over to those creatures. They will possess it forever, from generation to generation.
So this place is going to be a memorial.
Chapter 35.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do away with this. And I want to do this here. I want to take Isaiah 34. And you should know what I'm going to do. Bear me for a minute, y'all. Did Isaiah .34 take place. Let's see what happens. Just want to get their view. Bear with me for a minute. Okay, Isaiah 34. They don't say too much. Isaiah 34 has not fully taken place. Good. That means the Edomites still are here, because the judgment is coming on the Edomites. So for the Google say Isaiah 34 has not fully taken place, as it is viewed as an apocalyptic and eschatological prophecy regarding the final judgment of nations. Well, it specifically mentions Edom. While it uses historical symbols like Edom, its cosmic imagery remains unfulfilled. So they mention Edom. Prophetic and eschatological views. Global judgment. No, it's not global judgment. It's where Edom's land is. The passage describes an ultimate worldwide, not a worldwide thing, reckoning rather than a localized historical event, or it's going to be a historical event. Cosmic language. Descriptions involving the heavens rolling up like a scroll points toward future and time fulfillment rather than past antiquity. Symbolic Edom. Edom functions as a representative archetype for hostile worldly powers rather than a literal destruction recorded in completed history. Now this is what I want to do. Try to corner him. We're analyzing, psychoanalyzing, and reviewing. Isaiah 34 is not fully taken. It's not what I want. It goes in the AI mode. They should say mushroom cloud. It doesn't say that. The dissolution of the cosmic order, ancient peoples view, because they say that Edom is an ancient race. Edom is here now, they're just under a different name. View the sky as a vast canopy of, or a tent, stretched over the earth to roll it up. Implies that the physical sky and the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars, will be peeled back or dissolved. And that's not going to happen, exposing the creation beneath its creator. It ain't giving me what the hell I want. Anyway, I just wanted to cover that to see what was going on. Let me see, where am I? Where's the 200,000? Okay, so when you get a chance, you watch the rest of this video. Like I said, I wanted to just go through that in the NLT just to see what it says. Let's check. Let's check. Okay, somebody's saying, bro, don't swear like that. Ain't nothing wrong with swearing. I got you, bro. Can't be cursing. And sometimes you get spirit on you to curse. You curse. Why don't you get into the lesson, bro? Be holy, bro. So cursing doesn't make you holy. Be of a clean land. And this guy's emotional. Let me open him up. Okay, this, I don't know who this guy is. Oh, this is this guy. Pretty good. He knows prophecy. A man over here. Canadian vacation.
Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And of course, I know that you have read that story many times. But I want to show you something that you may not
This guy's name is Perry, something Perry. He knows his shit. You know, here if you front him about America, he'll probably say, yes, America can very well. I believe he does believe that Babylon is America. But anyway. Anyway, let me just go check this real quick, see what's going on. GMS. Nutrition is key. Ga. They're narrowed and made this country a big mess. The shock is here. Gas prices will scar America for years. Israel, I guess Israel's the new world reserve currency, because America's going to be led by Israel, in my opinion. Instead of coming out of DC, it's going to come out of Israel. Well, we know that Farrakhan doesn't understand what the will of the Lord is. You don't understand what's going on. If you don't repent, the Most High gonna get him. Anyway. With that, Shalom on to the next. Let me see something. Okay, this was put up. If they're admitting 600, so yeah, because they said 4 soldiers died, troops. It's more like 600, and this guy's pulling back. Nero's pulling back. Anyway, Shalom on to the next.
One by one, judges nominated by Donald Trump for the federal bench were collapsing under cross-examination in the United States Senate under very basic questioning by both Democratic senators and Republican senators. These individuals look like the worst qualified individuals to be on the federal bench. Let me show you what went down as Democratic Senator Blumenthal cross-examined these Trump picks to be federal judges about who won the 2020 election. Let's play this clip.
Who won the 2020 election, Judge Traynor?
Senator, this issue has become a question of political controversy. I'm a sitting federal district judge. I'm a nominee to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And Justice Jackson, who previously was confirmed by the Senate for a position...
Well, if I may interrupt you, Judge, because my time is limited. It's political controversy only because the president refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. I'm asking you, as a matter of fact, who won the 2020 election?
Well, Senator, as Justice Jackson stated in her responses to questions in the record, it is not appropriate to engage in discussion regarding that as a judge.
So you're going to use the same script that other nominees have used before this panel to avoid the question?
Senator, I think the precedents established by Justice Jackson and other nominees is something that I need to follow.
As a matter of fact, who got more votes in 2020? Which of the presidential candidates?
Senator, as I stated before, this is an issue that Justice Jackson and other nominees have been asked. They've not provided a response.
You understand why I'm asking you to state, as a simple matter of fact, who got more votes. The reason is that the president seeks to perpetuate a lie. You are, in effect, protecting the lie if you fail to take an independent position as a matter of simple fact. Everybody in this room knows the answer. You're unwilling to state it, instead adopting a script that's been dictated to you by the White House. You prepared this answer with the White House, did you not?
Senator, I prepared the answer based upon the response provided by Justice Jackson.
You consulted with the White House before you invoked Justice Jackson. That's the script, as you well know, that nominees sitting where you are right now have used again and again and again. Let me ask you, was the Capitol attack?
Then there were more questions like this from Senator Blumenthal, who's like, really, you're just going to stick to this script? Let's play this clip.
Who won the 2020 election?
Senator, as a matter of law, Joe Biden was the winner of the 2020 election.
Who got more votes?
Senator, my focus as a judicial nominee is on the law, and as a matter of law, Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Who got more electoral college votes?
Joe Biden received more electoral college votes.
And was the Capitol attacked on January 6th?
Senator, as part of my work as an assistant United States attorney, pardon me, I had the opportunity to look at pictures and videos from that day, and what I saw in those was that officers, law enforcement officers, were attacked, and the building was damaged and vandalized.
Mr. Pozos, who won the 2020 election?
Senator, I would agree with my fellow nominee.
Can you get closer to the mic or turn it on?
My apologies, Senator. I would agree with my fellow nominee's answer, Senator.
You're going to stick with that script?
Senator, I don't believe it's a script. President Biden was certified as the winner.
Who got more popular votes?
Senator, with respect to the popular vote, my role as a nominee here is to speak to the law.
Who got more votes in the Electoral College?
Senator, my understanding is that Joseph Biden received more votes in the Electoral College.
Was the Capitol attacked on January 6th?
Senator, I've certainly seen videos relating to what occurred at the Capitol on that date. From what I saw, it appeared that there was violence and trespass, as my fellow nominee said. It's profoundly troubling, and I abhor.
So the Capitol was attacked?
Senator, I would hesitate to characterize what occurred at the Capitol.
You'd hesitate to tell the truth here. Ms. Colomero, who won the 2020 election?
Senator, as a matter of law, Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Who got more votes in the popular election?
Senator, similar to my fellow nominees, I'm here also to speak about the law. And as a matter of law, Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
As a matter of law?
Yes, Senator.
Who won more votes?
Well, Joe Biden received more electoral votes.
Who won more votes in the election
Senator,
among the American people?
As a matter of law, Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Was the Capitol attacked on January 6th?
Senator, like my other nominees, I have seen videos.
Like your other nominees, you're going to adopt the script, the new script, the new hedge, the new White House pre-negotiated script. Mr.
More intense cross-examination, this time by former federal prosecutor and California Senator Adam Schiff. Let's play it.
We're perfectly free to immerse yourself in that, exercise your First Amendment rights there. But when it comes to asking you basic questions about January 6th, you won't answer those questions.
Judge relating to individuals that have been charged for conduct that occurred on that date in this Capitol.
So does that mean that any litigation involving Columbia you're prepared to recuse yourself from?
Senator, the limitation on Columbia was in regard to hiring law clerks. I hold no bias against the institution itself.
Well, whether you hold a bias towards it or not, you're saying today that you can't discuss any of the January 6th stuff because there are pending cases or controversies, even though they've all been pardoned by the president. I'm not sure what case or controversy you're referring to, but nevertheless, you're unwilling to say you recuse yourself from a case or controversy involving Columbia when you specifically weighed in there. How do we reconcile that?
Well, Senator, as I stated in the recusal Ranking Member Durbin raised, I indicated that I held no particular bias against.
Well, yeah, that's fine. You can say you hold no particular bias about January 6th, too. I mean, it's easy to say. Your letter demonstrates a very clear bias. I'm not saying that it's an unreasonable bias, but it is a bias. It is a prejudice in favor of one view. That would cause people to question your impartiality if that case came before you. That seems to me a stronger, much stronger case for recusal than the one you're making to refuse to answer questions about January 6th. So let me just ask to make sure that I understand the limits of what you're prepared to say. Who won the 2020 election?
Senator, as I indicated in response to questions from Senator Blumenthal, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, as a sitting circuit court judge at the time of her nomination, was asked this question in questions to the record.
I'm asking you the question.
Yes, and as a sitting judge, I will tell you that it is not appropriate for a judicial nominee to engage in discussion regarding a matter of political controversy with that.
See, this is completely inconsistent with your involvement in the whole Columbia controversy. Completely inconsistent. Because you involved yourself in that controversy. You went out of your way. Nobody asked you to write that letter. You took this upon yourself to do, to insert yourself into that. But you're saying here, you can't answer a simple question about who won the 2020 election because it would somehow implicate you in controversy. I'm sorry, there's no way to square those two things. Mr. Chair.
As I mentioned, even some Republican senators were doing some pretty good cross-examination. Now, I'm no fan of Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, MAGA Republican there. He's got a background in being a prosecutor, and his questions at these judiciary hearings tend to be pretty decent to good. He asked one of the Trump picks to be a federal judge about the doctrine of qualified immunity, whereby police officers are not held civilly liable for engaging in excessive force if this doctrine of qualified immunity applies. And essentially, to simplify it, would a reasonable police officer make the same mistake? If a reasonable officer engages in a reasonable mistake, then the officer would be not liable regardless of the circumstances, even if the officer shoots and kills someone it's determined to be negligent. If you were reasonably negligent, then you get off. Now, that's why I don't like the qualified immunity doctrine. That was my...
You know, as a white man, I don't understand what's so hard for so many white people to understand that it's always been the white man. It was the white man in the Atlantic slave trade. It was the white man who committed genocide to the indigenous people here. It was the white man who killed millions and millions of people in the Holocaust. It was the white man who massacred millions of people in Congo. It was the white man in the frontier wars in Australia who massacred Aboriginous Australians. It was the white man whose government forced the natives to relocate, causing thousands to die on the Trail of Tears. It was the white man in the Philippines who massacred thousands of civilians. What is so hard to accept about that? Because today, it's the white man and the white supremacist marching around D.C. It's the white man lying about a group of Haitians who hurt no one. They go to work and go home. It's the white man dressed in ICE outfits, murdering immigrants, murdering citizens. It's always been the white man. And yet, you think and walk around this country like it's undocumented immigrants. All of a sudden, that's the problem. Undocumented immigrants committed 17 murders out of over 17,000. But that's the problem. And yet, when one of those 17 get murdered, our fucking white government will go as far as to pass a bill and name it after the person that got murdered And forget about the thousands of minorities that get murdered. That doesn't matter. It's whatever fits the white narrative. And you people are so stupid, you follow it. You're so ignorant that you don't want to change. It's always been the white man. And it's the white man today.
I've mentioned before that my daughter just moved back up here from Florida. And her in-laws, soon to be former in-laws, hopefully soon, are disgusting people. They are just all nice and friendly Southern people when you meet them. Oh, hi, how you doing? And then when you're in town with them and they see some black people, because these people have been in that neighborhood, you know, that town, McClenny, Florida, for generations. They see a black person, they shake their hand. Hi, how you doing, Claudette? Oh, you just look so pretty today. And then they turn around, they get the hand sanitizer out, and they go, oh, I don't like shaking those people's hands. It's just fucking just awful, disgusting behavior. It's the whole town. The whole town. Everybody, all the white people know everybody, and you know, it's the school teachers, it's the judges, it's the cops. They're all friends, and they all feel the same way about their black residents, you know, fellow residents down there. And it's just, it's sickening. It makes me want to throw up. I mean, once you get away from those people, you just need to take a shower. God damn. The hearts of many across this whole country, but especially in the South, are just dark and full of hate. While she lived down there, my daughter that is, I was sick with fear that she was going to become like them. And God, I'm so thankful she got away from there. And she sees it. She is not like those people. And thank God for it. I've mentioned before.
What's up, peeps? So it's come to my attention that some irate white people on Facebook created their own group called End Fatigue. You can guess what the N stands for. And it's a public group, and it's just grievances of all these white people that are just so tired of black people and black culture and, you know, ghetto this and black that and yeah. I guarantee you the majority of these people probably live in, you know, rural areas or the suburbs where they probably hardly ever see any black people, let alone interact with them. But again, it's this whole, you know, so-called white culture, white supremacy thing. You know, these people are just so scared that they're going to become a minority in the near future, the great replacement theory, and they're scared that they might get treated half as bad as the way white people have been treating minorities and marginalized people for decades, if not centuries. And they're really lucky that the majority of black and brown people in this country just want equality and not revenge. God. But you know what? As a white person, especially one that lives in a very red Republican part of California, I have white fatigue. I am tired of white people. I'm tired of rich, white, bigoted PDF files running our country into the ground, enacting all these draconian laws to make it hard for anybody who isn't white just to get by. And I'm tired of poor, white, ignorant, bum fucking idiots supporting these people, you know, voting Republican for decades and decades and wondering why nothing ever gets better, voting against their own interests because right-wing media has beat it into their brains that they're superior to black and brown people because of the color of their skin. I am so tired of these people. I'm tired of Trump supporters. I'm tired of Republicans. I'm tired of Christians. I'm tired of just the whole white, you know, culture. And these same people, you know, they fucking punch down on, you know, Latinos and Mexicans, and they support ICE and stuff. And then they go to a Mexican restaurant and eat enchiladas and burritos. If you hate, you know, minorities so much, don't eat ethnic food. Just eat white food. Eat hamburgers and hot dogs. Eat mashed potatoes. Don't eat anything that has any spice in it because you obviously can't handle it. But again, I'm sick of this shit every fucking day. And that's the whole reason we're in this mess right now. It's the whole reason Trump got put into the White House twice. It's because a bunch of fucking inferior white people who've never done anything meaningful in their lives think that they're superior to black and brown people just because of the color of their skin and because people on Fox News keep telling them that they're superior and all their problems are caused by people that aren't like them and not the rich people at the top that are screwing us all. We are in a class war, and the majority of us in the working class are losing because a third of our fucking people are just stupid white people that think that they're better than the rest of us. I got news for you bumpkins. You have way more in common with black and brown people who are poor just like you than you will ever have with these millionaires and billionaires who keep lying to you and keep robbing you blind. Anyway, have a good day.
I'm going to tell you right up front, this is going to be a little bit of a long answer, but I promise you it is worth it. This is a history lesson with some brutal honesty, and I know what I'm talking about. I have a bachelor's in history, I have a master's in anthropology, and I've done archaeology and historical work all across the Southeast. All right, and I speak the language of white supremacy. Here we go. Prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, white people didn't feel towards black people the same way that they do now. It wasn't what I would categorize as hatred as much as it was ambivalence. The type of ambivalence that you might feel towards an animal. Maybe not some of you, but think of a farmer, how he might feel towards the cattle that he is castrating and branding. Is that hatred? It's ambivalence. And the person next to him who may not even be a farmer, why would he feel hatred towards the farmer's cattle? You got to remember, black people in this country were viewed as livestock. They were viewed as property. They were not treated or viewed as human in any sense. No right to vote, no right to own property, couldn't read and write, branded, bred, skinned, sometimes eaten. But that ambivalence isn't enough of a motivator to get people to take up arms and go fight and die for a cause that is simply the cause of keeping black people enslaved. And I don't care what anybody fucking says, that is exactly what the states were fighting for the right to do. And it wasn't the states, it was the plantation owners. That's who's in power. The plantation owners were telling the states, the representatives, what to do. And in order to sell this to the public so they could raise an army, they needed to incite fear and hatred in an undereducated and impoverished white community in the South. And so they used preachers, just like they do now, to sell this to the public. They sold them fear, because who better to give you a devil to hate than a Christian preacher? And so we have documented examples of this. Preachers across the South preaching to congregations that if black people were freed, they would rise up and revolt. They would burn down all the cities in the South. They would kill white people and grape white women. And when given a devil to fear, ignorant, undereducated, poor white people will latch on to it. They will not only go and fight and die for that cause, they will pay you for the information. They will tithe the preacher, then go home, put on their boots, grab their rifle, and go out and die so that a plantation owner can continue to have free labor. That's how stupid my ancestors were. That's how stupid white people's ancestors were that fought in the Confederacy. And that's how they learned to hate. They learned to hate because plantation owners needed an army and politicians helped them with the preachers to sell a narrative of hate, to give them a devil to hate. And it permeates so much today that white people still won't go into black spaces. Even if The party that's happening looks fun as shit. Let me give you an example of that. Every year, twice a year, HBCU teams have rivalry games at Lad People Stadium right here in Mobile, Alabama. And we love marching bands, and we love football, and we love Saturday nights in the fall under beautiful Alabama sky, but you will hardly find a white person in that place, despite the incredible food in the parking lot, the vibes and the dancing and the music inside, the world-class marching band music in the home of Mardi Gras, where we love marching bands so much that we call the parades the Boom Boom. We named Mardi Gras after the bass drum in the marching band, and white people will not go to that event. Do you know why? Because they are fearful. That's where the devils are, in that stadium. That shit has permeated our subconscious so much that even when we're driving in a car 50 miles an hour down the road, if we see a black person on the street, somebody will lock the goddamn doors. Not anymore. The new cars lock automatically, but you get my point. We were taught to hate you and to fear you, and some of us, most of us, are too fucking stupid to see that not only is that wrong, but it doesn't serve our well-being either. They're using us and taking advantage of both us and you, the black community. Hope that answers your question.
All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of GMS. Shalom to the hopefully elect. All right, this video is going to be entitled White Guilt by Esau. All right, white guilt by Esau. And that's so-called white. So in this video, we got these 4 individuals who appear to be, they look like white men. You know, now with the exception of the first guy, well, let me give you a disclaimer. Not every single so-called white person is an Edomite, but for all intents and purposes, the so-called white man is Esau. Some of these people go back to, you know, Israelites. They could be Israelites, or they may be another nation, okay? But as we know here in Babylon, the Great America, the predominant, the prevailing thought for the so-called white people here is that they're the Edomites. And in these last days, you're hearing a lot of remorse. I won't even say remorse. They're admitting the fact that, and when I say they, I'm talking about these so-called white people in general. Some of them are angry and they're lashing out at so-called black people and the different things going on the earth, different social events that are happening, murders, you know, different news and reports, right? Some of them are kind of indifferent. They're kind of in the middle. Others, they're coming with the remorse because they know that their actions or the actions of their people have been, I say, you know, they've been downright brutal. Okay? Nobody can escape the past of this country and what so-called white people have done on the earth. And a lot of your citizens, which really they're, you know, the so-called white man again is Esau, the Edomites from the Holy Bible. And we are the Israelites, your twin brother Jacob. The Latinos, Native Americans, and so-called Negroes, right? Those that go back to those people through the seed of your fathers. And some of you are related to us and you don't even know it. And this could be the, you know, the reason why you're admitting the past transgressions of your people, the wrong deeds. That could be the reason why some of you may think that you're going to get mercy from the Heavenly Father because, you know, by admitting all the misdeeds and all the dirt that your people have done. Others of you are just afraid. You know, you realize that y'all fucked and you don't know what to do. And it's causing you emotion. You know, emotions are just coming out because of the word of truth. It's going out all over the earth. Regardless if these individuals admit they know about the Hebrew Israelites or not, a lot of truth is coming out. We've been telling, you know, people for a long time about all the terrible deeds of the wicked, which are the Edomites. So, you know, with that, you got this phrase called white guilt. And again, all these individuals could be Edomites. None of them may be Edomites. All of them could be Israelites, right? Or maybe 1 or 2 of them. Particularly the fellow in the middle with the North Carolina hat on, the first person in the video, talking about it was always the white man, this and that. He could be an Israelite. I could see that. Even the dude on the end, you know, they got that spirit, but you just don't know. You can't tell by looking at somebody. But for this message right here, we gonna say white guilt by Esau. All right. Now, if we look up the term white guilt, let's do that now. What is it? White guilt is a sense of discomfort, remorse, or collective responsibility that white individuals may feel upon recognizing historical and systematic racism, colonialism, and their unearned privileges. See that? What does the term white guilt mean? White guilt is an individual or collective sense of remorse felt by white people resulting from historical and contemporary racism, systemic injustices, and unearned privilege directed against people of color. All right, and you can look into it and read it more yourself. Not gonna worry about it too much. I mean, it's really just for the title. White guilt, you can easily know what that means, and you should feel guilty. You should feel guilty, to be honest. But no matter what your motivation is to these four individuals, regardless of what your motivation is, because a lot today you got that thing, that political correctness, and what people have done now is made it a thing where if you're a racist, that's like a social injustice where they can't just tolerate it because they want this society to be equal for everybody. Doesn't mean that they're not still racist themselves or that they, don't know that they're Edomites. It just means that that's an outward, a cheap veneer that people put on like a shirt, like they try to make it like, even with the whole thing with the alphabet community, they try to make that like that's a social thing where they're a race of people. See, if you against same-sex marriages and all that freaky shit, then that's almost like you're being a racist. You know what I mean? It's not like a thing of right and wrong. It's a thing of you should just accept everybody. That's why most of this shit I don't really buy it. Now, we do know that these people are guilty as hell, and everything these men said pretty much is true, right, about the past and about how they've been raised to be the way that they are. Well, that ain't our fault. That's not our problem. We're the Israelites, and the Lord gonna save and deliver us. He gonna destroy the shit out of these devils, man. It ain't got nothing to do with us. Let's read them the judgment. A message for Edom from the NLT. This is Ezekiel 35:1. It says, again, a message came to me from the Lord. So the Lord gave us this message first to Ezekiel, then to us in these last days through the reading of the book of Ezekiel, a message to give to you Edomites. Okay? You Edomites out there, Esau, Edom. It says, verse 2, Son of man, turn and face Mount Seir and prophesy against its people. So we're supposed to prophesy against the Edomites. All you different Israelites out there that got a problem with it, that is exactly what it is. It is your problem. You can't save these people, right? And we talk about the Edomites now, whether these 4 men are Edomites or not. Overall, the so-called white man is Esau. He's guilty as hell, and can't nobody get him out of his judgment, and we don't care who got a problem with it, right? Our Lord told us to do this. Son of man, turn and face Mount Seir and prophesy against its people. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. You hear that? Give them a message from the Lord. I am your enemy, O Mount Seir, and I will raise my fist against you to destroy you completely. And today, America, Babylon the Great, which is the main stronghold, the chief hideout, the headquarters for the empire of Esau, Edom, is America, Babylon the Great, and it will be destroyed by nuclear fire via World War III by the thermonuclear warheads. Okay, thus saith the Lord. It goes on. I will demolish your cities and make you desolate. Then you will know that I am the Lord. And World War III, which is Armageddon, is going to cause this to happen. And here's part of the reason why. I said this is the main reason why. Your eternal hatred. See that? See, when you see eternal hatred, all that shit about we can come together and love one another and this and that, that doesn't mean shit to us when you say that, because the Lord said it's an eternal hatred. See, this one guy at the end saying they was raised to be that way, and they've been raised that, they won't go to events where a bunch of black people are, so-called black people, because in their minds, the way they've been raised is that there's a bunch of devils in there. Well, really, the devil is the one that's done all this shit. You can't call our people devils because now they so out of pocket through your brainwashing and your hip hop and all the things that you sponsored and pushed on them, right? You can't turn around and call them devils when you the one that's got all the blood on you. I mean, you can call them that, but it doesn't really make them that. Which at the end of the day, like I said before, black culture is really white culture. All they're doing is mimicking what they seen you do. Your eternal hatred for the people of Israel led you to butcher them when they were helpless, when I had already punished them for all their sins. Right, the Heavenly Father sent us here in captivity, in chains. He stripped us down. He took our heritage from us, and you went overboard with the shit. We was helpless, and you just continued on. You butchered us up. Even to this very day does it still continue. As surely as I live, says the sovereign Lord, since you show no distaste for blood, I will give you a bloodbath of your own. Your turn has come. I will make Mount Seir utterly desolate, killing off all who try to escape and any who return. And Mount Seir today is represented by what? Back then, Mount Seir was the dwelling place of the Edomites. Today, Edomites dwell all over the earth, but the main ruling place is America, Babylon the Great. You got great numbers in Europe, and you're also in the Holy Land, as well as other parts of the world. But America and the Holy Land are going to get hit with destruction from the Lord. It says, I will fill your mountains with the dead. Your hills, your valleys, and your ravines will be filled with people slaughtered by the sword. I will make you desolate forever. Your cities will never be rebuilt. Then you will know that I am the Lord. For you said, the lands of Israel and Judah will be ours. We will take possession of them. What do we care that the Lord is there, right? You stole this land from the so-called Native Americans, which were Israelites, right? And the 10 tribes, you stole it from them. They are Israelites. Not every single, those of you that follow, you know what we're saying. And then you brought the so-called Negroes over here after you stole the homeland, right? During the Roman persecution of the 70 AD, right? The ransacking of Jerusalem, you stole it then, and then even now you got your relatives living over there. See? So you stole these lands. Verse 11 says, therefore, as surely as I live, says the sovereign Lord, I will pay back your angry deeds with my own. I will punish you for all your acts of anger, envy, and hatred, and I will make myself known to Israel by what I do to you. And this is what the Lord is going to, sure enough, bring judgment on the Edomites. And let's go prove real quick what I said. Let's get Ezekiel 36:5 now. Ezekiel 36:5. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which is Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. All you people that say that the so-called white man is not Esau, well, please show us what people on earth have taken the Holy Land for their very own selves, and at the same time they displace the people of the Lord. Then they rule over the people of the Lord in Babylon the Great. You can't put those prophecies on the Arabs. You can't put that on any other nation. It's only on these so-called white people. You are guilty because we're still in your hand. We're in your hand. All our possessions, everything you've been doing, you fulfill all the prophecies of Esau, Edom. All of them. And you can never, and look, you people think that you gain some kind of foothold, or you, because you say out there in the world, the white man is really not Esau, this, whatever you think you can say. We're going to constantly prevail over you. You know why? Because it is the truth. It doesn't matter how hard you fight against it, what documents you pull up, what false teachers you send, right? No matter how many videos of ours you take down or try to hide the truth. Even your own people know, okay, that you are the Edomites of the Holy Bible. You can't get out of this shit. You can't. You can't just say some shit and then just because you say it and you got the power and you run everything, that what you say is going to prevail, not over what the Lord says. The Lord says you're Esau, Edom. He's supposed to give you the message. Period. You don't match prophecy as the Israelites. You match prophecy as Esau, Edom. Period, man. And you know, I was going to read some other scriptures, but now let's go to Isaiah 34. We'll read this in the NLT. Then we're going to end the video. We're going to read it from the KJV. Isaiah 34:1, it says, come near ye nations to hear, and hearken ye people. Let the earth hear and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. Is the whole world going to hear this message? Sure. And all nations are going to be part of World War III because all nations have been complicit with the Edomites and enslaving the Israelites. At some point, you all took part of Babylon the Great spoils. You all have been in bed with the great whore, and you are guilty by collusion, guilty by association, and you can't get out of it. Everybody's judgment is set. Every nation has a judgment that they're going to receive, but these are the most guilty parties, the Edomites. It goes on. Verse 2, for the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations. It is. All nations going to get some of this. It ain't just the so-called white man. He's just the main culprit. And his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. This is why all your nations are going to go into World War III. Now we see Saudi Arabia, right? Saudi Arabia is also joining the fight against the Iranians. You see, we hearing different things, you know, Lebanon being brought into it and all these different countries, yeah. And that's a good thing. Ukraine is also attacking, had some kind of attack. That's a good thing. And we hearing also that the Israeli and American militaries, it's being discussed bringing the two together. And if you do that, that is wonderful news. Although terrifying on some level, it's still wonderful news. Because there's no way that Jacob is going to tie himself together with Esau and help Esau in the last days. It's just not possible. Who's going to come to the aid of Esau? Other Edomites. You're only going to prove what we've been telling you. And all nations are going to get a part of this, even the African nations. All nations are going to be brought into this to get a portion of the judgment because you are all guilty. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. And that describes the nuclear destruction. Now let's switch real briefly here to the NLT for the next few verses. Isaiah 34 and 5. It says, and when my sword has finished its work in the heavens, it will fall upon Edom, the nation I have marked for destruction. The sword of the Lord is drenched with blood and covered with fat, with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of rams prepared for sacrifice. Yes, the Lord will offer a sacrifice in the city of Bozrah. He will make a mighty slaughter in Edom. In the city of Bozrah, in the ancient world, was the capital of the Edomites, should we say. Okay? Today, the capital of the Edomite Empire is America, Babylon the Great, which is the Roman Empire. All right? America, NATO, and the EU. Even men as strong as wild oxen will die. The young men alongside the veterans. The land will be soaked with blood and the soil enriched with fat. Why? For it is the day of the Lord's revenge, the year when Edom will be paid back for all it did to Israel. Absolutely. The Lord's going to pay you back. And we've been telling you, all that shit you did to us, the Lord's going to pay it all back, and there's no way out. The streams of Edom will be filled with burning pitch, and the ground will be covered with fire. This judgment on Edom will never end. The smoke of its burning will rise forever. The land will lie deserted from generation to generation. No one will live there anymore. And this is how we know for a fact that it's not talking about the ancient land of Edom, because the ancient land, people live there now. Right? People go there all the time. It's a great tourist site. So we know it ain't talking about that. It's talking about over here in Babylon the Great, America, because when this place is hit with this nuclear destruction, nobody's going to live here anymore. And it matches up with the same judgment of Babylon the Great over here in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And this is describing that same thing as Isaiah 34, the nuclear destruction. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as the fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And these stars falling from heaven represent the nuclear warheads coming out of the heavens. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island will move out of their places. This is nuclear destruction. All right. It says, and the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains which represents what? The churches, the bunkers, all the places you're going to try to run and hide, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Right, and if you go to Revelation 16, right, and it tells you how it's going to occur. Revelation 16 and 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together. Now the garments represent having the truth, right? All those without the truth, they're going to be naked, and they're going to get caught out there, all right? And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, it is done. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. See, that great earthquake is going to be started by the nuclear detonation. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before the Most High, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. See, so this is Babylon that is happening to, but in Isaiah 34, it said it's going to happen to Edom, right? So we know that the Edomites ruled Babylon the Great, which is the so-called white man of the day, and every island fled away, and the mountains were not found, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven. The great hail, right, that John the Revelator is describing is really nuclear warheads. Every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed the Most High because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. You see, so all of that white guilt that people are feeling, you know, you have an overwhelming invading thoughts or thought of destruction, judgment, retribution coming back from the God of heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and you cannot get out of it. And I title these videos certain ways to draw a viewer's attention so that you will watch and you will hear the prophecies of Esau, Edom, that you are doomed. I don't care how much shit you talk, what you think you, and look, we know there's plans out there to try to come and eliminate some of us, to do this, to do that. So what? So fucking what? It ain't gonna stop the judgment that's coming on your ass. So do what you're gonna do. The Lord will still do what he gonna do. And we're gonna see where we all wind up, all right? Lord willing, it was edifying. All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Time is running out on this place and on these people. Shalom.
World leaders are absolutely furious at Donald Trump and his dastardly regime, and they are now coming out in public and they are calling him out. They are calling out his weakness, and I think everybody's recognizing what an utter failure that meeting was, not just with Putin, which was just total humiliation for the United States, but the dog and pony show that was that meeting with the European leaders that Donald Trump exited so he can call Vladimir Putin on the phone and get instructions from Vladimir Putin about what to do. How embarrassing. Folks, there's no ceasefire, which Donald Trump promised he was going to do, or else there would be serious ramifications against Russia. So that didn't happen. There's no no trilateral meeting between Russia, Zelensky, and Donald Trump. Putin never wanted that to take place. And there are no security guarantees that Russia is okay with in Ukraine. That was always BS. And we've always been calling it out, despite our own propaganda media in America saying, oh, Donald Trump got security guarantees from Putin. No, he didn't. What Donald Trump got from Putin was basically Putin dominating Donald Trump rolling out the red carpet for Putin. It was so utterly disgusting, literally with our own soldiers on their knees. So here's what French President Emmanuel Macron just had to say. And he goes, basically, he calls Donald Trump an idiot. Here, watch this.
Several of us told him you were speaking to President Putin. He was bombing Ukraine. So this first shows the necessity to stop the massacres, the necessity for a truce, and it also shows at some point the facts reveal the intentions. That's all. Today, Russia, in fact, continues the war, intensifies it, wages war against Ukrainian civilians as well, and gives no signal of sincerely wanting peace. And the experience we have over the last 15 years with Mr. Putin, President Putin, in his approach, is that every time he can win by war, when he thinks he can win by war, he does not negotiate peace. That's the reality. That's why I say, and I said again yesterday, you have an American president, European presidents, Ukrainian presidents who want peace. For my part, I have the greatest doubts about the reality of a desire for peace on the part of the Russian president, because as long as he thinks he can win by war, he will do so. And his ultimate goal is to take as much territory as possible, to weaken Ukraine, and to have a Ukraine that is not viable alone or within the Russian sphere. This is quite obvious to everyone. And so, our objective is simple: to have peace as soon as possible, to uphold international law and Ukrainian sovereignty, to minimize territorial losses for Ukraine, and especially to help Ukraine resist any new aggression, to have a Ukraine that has chosen Europe, to be able to continue choosing Europe freely, and to guarantee the security of Europeans. And these are the famous security guarantees we need for Ukraine today and tomorrow, and for us, Europeans, because it is our security at stake there.
Then in Canada, we saw an important meeting between the Prime Minister Carney and the Premier of Ontario. Watch as they kind of meet Doug Ford and Carney. There was a more extensive meeting, but let's play this clip.
I know you're a busy man and getting a lot done since we saw each other last time. And I'm going to take this opportunity to congratulate you again on your leadership, obviously, of this province, but also of the Council of the Federation at a critical time for the country. The work of the Federation itself, but also the work of the premiers with the federal government at a critical time for our economies has been essential. And je voudrais saluer le leadership du Premier ministre Ford de l'Ontario et puis du Conseil de la Fédération. Pendant un temps crucial pour notre pays. We've got a lot of work to do on major projects, on affordability, on security in our communities, and I think we're working well together, but we've got more to do and get it done, and we're going to have a good conversation to move forward.
Good. Well, I look forward to it, and thank you, Prime Minister, for having me by. We're going to have a real productive meeting here, and as I mentioned to the Prime Minister and the Premiers before, we know President Trump's unpredictable. We have to find out what we need to do to make sure that we create the environment and conditions for companies from around the world to continue investing in Canada. Yeah. And we'll have that discussion. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Now, India is absolutely furious at the Trump regime after decades and decades of the United States trying to cultivate better relations with India, trying to push India away from Russia and China towards the United States, which presidents have done before Trump regime. Donald Trump accepted Bitcoin and investments in crypto from Pakistan, India's enemy, and then Donald Trump basically became a Pakistan fanboy rather than the world's largest democracy or oldest democracy in India, one of them. Donald Trump likes Pakistan. He loves authoritarian leaders. That's what's going down right there. And then Donald Trump continues to try to take credit for bringing peace to India and Pakistan. And India's like, you didn't. Can you just stop freaking lying about that? You had nothing to do with it. But anyway, this was from India's media, where they're like, at this point, India is just saying, we're going to buy more oil from the people you don't want us to, because we're moving away from the United States towards China. Here, watch this.
You know, would one be calling this as a big message at this given point to the United States from India that, you know, we will not be bullied around in terms of who we choose to trade with?
Now, I know this is not getting a lot of coverage in any other corporate news, but I focus a lot on how Donald Trump's destroyed the relationship with India, because you're going to see that trend of these countries moving more to China. Countries are de-risking from the United States, and they're moving towards China at this point, where they used to de-risk away from China. Here is the president of Finland, Stubb. Here's what he has to say. And again, very clear how pissed off he is at Donald Trump and what went down at that meeting. Here, play this clip.
It's personal to you. And not just because you happen to be the president of Finland and you've got the largest land border, all those things that I keep repeating. I mean, it's personal to you. Your father, your grandfather were both born in cities that Finland was forced to cede to the then Soviet Union. Cities that are part of Russia now. So, I mean, do you have any doubts about Putin's ambitions when it comes to expanding Russian territory?
Well, I mean, we've seen that in both Georgia and in Ukraine. But, you know, I keep on stressing the basics of it. So statehood is based on independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And after World War II, which for us was the Winter War and the War of Continuation, Finland retained independence, unlike, for instance, our Baltic friends, unfortunately. But we lost sovereignty to decide and we lost territory. But the difference there is that at that time, Finland was alone. But now Ukraine is not alone. And that's why I think it's so important that all of us, both Team Europe and Team US, keep on working for the independence, for the sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Ukraine.
And again, just think about what these Trump regime sycophants are saying, like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just going on Fox and just like utterly like mocking India, like attacking India, you know, in no uncertain terms. Play this clip.
You know better than anyone that the Russian economy really isn't strong enough or big enough to carry on a sustained war. I mean, certainly not indefinitely. Couldn't do it without the help of India, buying mostly oil. Could not do it without the help of China, which is providing the bulk of the support to Russia. Now, India has gotten hit with secondary tariffs, which I think is very positive, put them back on their heels a bit. But China really is the big contributor to Russia's current economic stability. Given that, why haven't we put significant secondary tariffs on China for what they're doing to help Russia?
Well, a couple of things there, Laura. One, China had always been buying Russian oil. So in 2022, 13% of their oil came from China, and now it's 16%, and they want a diversified oil supply. India, on the other hand, got about 1% of their oil from China in 22. Now it's up to 37%. So they're doing what I call the Indian arbitrage. They're buying cheap Russian oil, selling petrochemicals back out. Much of that is going to the richest families in India. We already have very high tariffs on China, and now India is going to see what it feels like.
But China buys an enormous amount of ag from Russia as well. And they are the biggest supporter of Russia. Without China, Russia couldn't be in this war. Do you not agree?
I agree. They've 15 billion minimum in dual-use technologies and other support that I'm sure we don't know about.
And again, here's one of Fox's top propagandists, Jesse Waters. Here's what he had to say.
The Europeans were sitting around the Resolute desk yesterday like they were waiting for class to start. Trump was giving Europe a geography lesson. He even put up the big, beautiful map and sent it home with Zelensky as homework. Now, if Zelensky can read a map like Trump can read a putt, we'll have a deal in no time.
And I've showed this clip before, but just to
I'm 35, and quite honestly, I'm lonely.
I'm just so lonely. I'm so overweighting. Like, when is it gonna be my turn?
I feel like I'm back in that hopeless pit where I'm just like, when's it gonna be my turn? Why is it taking so long?
Why is it so hard to find a guy?
Never having been picked, never having been wanted, never having been desired, as you go through all of these years. 27 years for me. 27 years.
I literally cannot express in words how badly I want a relationship.
I'm 37. I'll be 38 this year. I don't have any kids. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't talk to anybody. So I'm always alone.
I genuinely question if there is real love left, especially in our generation.
It sucks being 32 and single and seeing all your friends get engaged and not even being close to that. I've been stood up, ghosted, lied to, all in a matter of 3 months.
I hate this shit. What do y'all want me to say? I be in the bed crying every night.
I'm crying because I'm just reflecting on the fact that literally every person in my life
has used me and then just throws me out like a piece of trash.
And I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to try anymore.
I'm 35
And created religion because of the fact that they were jealous that women could give birth and they couldn't.
That's such a good point.
Because they needed to find something that was better than the ability to give birth, if you really think about it. So they had to create God, and God is something that you don't see. You will never meet him. He's in the sky. He's watching your every move. You need to be obedient. You need to pray. You need to suffer because you're going to get your just rewards in heaven if you suffer this life. They came up with all these concepts because that's supposed to be better than a woman giving birth. When in reality, there's nothing better than you wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't even be, sir, you wouldn't be here if your mom didn't give birth to you. Like, are you kidding me?
And honestly, religion is the only thing that makes us forget that fact.
Absolutely.
You're so spot on with that.
All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Shalom to the hopefully elect. This video is entitled Response. Modern women are hitting the wall. All right. Modern women are hitting the wall. You saw the video in the beginning. This is going to be a shorter video. And, you know, you can blame feminism. That'll be the number one thing. Equal rights, feminism, all that kind of talk. That's why you women are unhappy, man. You're unhappy because you're out of order. In Babylon the Great, the serpent gave you liberty and all this freedom. Now look, you had, and look, it ain't like you don't have choices. You got Facebook, you got Instagram. Let me just say you got social media. And all these choices, yet you can't find the right man. I wonder why. It's because you don't know how to fucking choose. And every one of these women that's crying, that's whining on that video about not being able to find the right man, they probably passed over hundreds of men who they deem not worthy of them. You can't pass by 100 different options and then say, you know, and tell the men that nobody's worthy of you, and then cry about not having a man. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I bet you every one of them situations, there's a story of a guy that loved the shit out of you and you didn't love him, and therefore you wind up, you know, acting like he wasn't good enough and you went on your way thinking you was gonna find something better. But what happened? Did you find anything better? No. You know why you didn't? Because you don't know how to judge. You don't know what's good for you. This is why in the ancient world this is why the Heavenly Father decrees that women be under their father's roof until the time of marriage, and then they go to their husband. This is what happens when women have freedom and they don't have a guide, a man over them to tell them what's best for them. Okay? Because really the way it's supposed to be, women are supposed to be under your father's roof, under his guidance and watchful eye, until such a time as your husband takes you to his house. You're never supposed to be on your own. You're supposed to be under your dad first, and then under your husband until death do you part. That's how it's supposed to be. But because of the so-called white man Esau in his world, his bullshit, now look, women everywhere, broken all over the sidewalk like broken glass, crying, all messed up, all ran through, high-ass body count, bad credit, no money, and still need a man who you say you didn't need. And this is good. And then you had the other two goofies in the middle. This one dumb, of course, the ringleader's the damn nigga woman, talking about men need religion because they're jealous of women. Ain't nobody jealous of the weaker vessel. You being able to have children and the way you have it is because the Heavenly Father designed you that way. This is the thing. You might brag about being able to give birth, but guess what? Only your father can make you an Israelite. Nobody's gonna be an Israelite without their father. So suck on that, which is what you want to be. In order to be from the world, from the nation you're from, you got to be first passed through the seed of your father. Really, the egg that's in you is not even alive. Okay, the seed that's in man, that's where life is, and it fertilizes that egg, and then it becomes living and active. Otherwise, if you could give birth, if you could make a child, you can just do it on your own. See, we got children in us right now. We implant children in you, and of course you need the egg and the sperm, but the sperm is where the life is, and that dwells in man. In the seed of man is where you come, but it doesn't matter. These are just some goofy ass women. They're out of order. They're rebellious. That's why they're not happy. And then basically they're witches. And you're seeing a strong pull of the spiritual demon Satan on these women, on the society in general, but these women is acted out through them mostly. You see, all on the internet crying, doing all that. And I bet you if some of their ex-boyfriends, men from their past could speak, they'd be like, man, I gave this girl everything, right? And she switched up on me thinking she was gonna find the grass being greener on the other side. Now your ass on the other side and the grass ain't greener. Go cry be a river already. We don't feel sorry for you. And the Heavenly Father warned us. And this is not to say that every woman is bad, okay? Because you got those righteous examples. But for the most part, the woman, as it were, was put here, you know, she's, well, let me say that the women of this society, they hit the wall, okay? And they're wicked as hell. Let's look up hit the wall. Let's see. Women hitting the wall. What does it mean? The phrase hitting the wall in dating culture means a point, usually claimed to be around age 30 or older. And you heard a couple of women say, what, I'm 35? Or you heard the one woman say, I'm 35 and this and that. When a woman's physical looks and romantic appeal drop quickly, leaving her with few options for marriage. You know why? Because you spend most of your early years, all the best years of your life, you give them to the streets and multiple different men. You see? And then when your ass all worn down and you through, you know, you all messed up. Now you want some man to love your ass and take care of you and do all those things that you should have been getting done when you was a younger woman. You should have been learning together with your husband from an early age and growing to a great age later on. But a lot of you women do shit backwards. You'll get with a husband early, and then later in your later years, then you try to act like you know everything. Now you don't need a husband. And really at the end of the day, what's going to have to happen is the Most High going to have to just bring the judgment and fuck up Babylon the Great, and then men will be able to be with their wives again like they were supposed to be from the beginning. It says the core claim, it argues that after a certain age, women lose their leverage in the dating market because their fertility and beauty decline. And it does. On some levels. Your fertility and beauty does decline. And it brings me back to a statement that was made. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Vince. What's this dude's name, man? I can't think of this guy's name. Funny dude, though. He's an actor. I can't think of it. Anyway, he said, what he said, when you get 35, you better have, something he said. I forget what he said. You better have a job and something. Damn. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the point of it was when you get older, you better have some other qualities other than just your looks and your damn body. But see, and then nowadays, man, these women, these goddamn septum rings, these fucking bodies, these lips, that crazy booties, that stuff you're doing to all your body, then you want getting covered in tattoos. Then you think you're gonna come lay up next to some righteous man? Hell no. Hell no. What did the Apostle Paul say? And let's read this first. Ecclesiastes 7:25. I applied mine heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the reason of things.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Sure, happy to be here.
Great to have you on the show. Now, I want to get your take on the latest here, as I know that Israel was on the verge of carrying out strikes against the southern suburbs of Beirut on Monday when Iran suspended talks with the U.S. and threatened to attack. Then we get this report from Axios, notably, claiming that Trump lashed out at Netanyahu over the phone and put his plan on hold. So to start out, how do you view this entire saga when it comes to the claim that Trump and Netanyahu are at odds here and that the U.S. is preventing Israel from really increasing its ethnic cleansing campaign in Lebanon?
Well, that's a loaded question, ethnic cleansing campaign, even though it's accurate. I think that we have to be very careful what we believe that's reported in the press about whatever happens between President Trump and anybody else. I mean, some of the language that was used certainly sounds realistic, but I think we have to step back and sort of come to terms with the reality. Who's really in charge? Why are we in this war with Iran? When you ask those questions, honestly, you have to conclude that the man in charge is probably Mr. Netanyahu, not Mr. Trump. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump may personally dislike Netanyahu. I don't know very many people, even people in Israel, that particularly like Netanyahu. And let's face it, every time Donald Trump thought in his mind that he had some sort of potential agreement in play with Iran, a phone call from Netanyahu put an end to it. How many times did Netanyahu visit him during his first year in office? And what happened just before Israel attacked Iran? He visited, he went home, he attacked, and then, we have to join the Israelis in this great war to destroy the evil state of Iran. So I'm very skeptical of whatever is reported publicly, but I think we know we are in this war, at least until either we are ruined by it financially, economically, and militarily and politically, or we are successful in utterly destroying Iran, because I think that's the track that we're on right now. Now, beyond that, I can't speculate, but I think Mr. Netanyahu may suspend something for the moment about Beirut, but has no intention of doing so in the future. He's going to do whatever he thinks, is in his...
Yeah, and I know that when it comes to those reports, it almost kind of plays well for both of them, right? On one hand, Trump gets to look tough, like he stood up to Netanyahu. On the other hand, even domestically, Netanyahu gets to look like he was going forward with those plans anyway, and then the charade kind of continues to a certain extent. And when it comes to these reports that Iran suspended talks with the U.S. over not only Israel's attacks on Lebanon, but also on the Gaza Strip, and warnings we've since heard from Iranian officials that they will intervene if Israel's attacks continue. How do you view the position that Iran is in here, kind of dealing with this ceasefire, kind of a name only with the U.S. as they trade attacks, while at the same time deciding how much to intervene in this overall conflict?
Well, I think we need to understand a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Trump and his team are not in any sort of direct talks with Iran's leadership. So whatever he's referring to as talks is presumably the intermediary in Pakistan delivering messages or responding to messages or questions. Even if that is happening, I'm not entirely sure it is. I just don't know. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think we need to finally conclude that Iran is definitely in the driver's seat. Iran feels that it's won this campaign to this point. It is now stronger and more powerful and more influential in the world than it has been for many hundreds of years. In fact, I would say that in a lot of ways, we're seeing this world in Asia and Central Asia sort of roar back into life after a long period of, I don't want to say slumber, but certainly a period where they seem to be sedated. I would include the Turks in that. They haven't been heard from just yet, but I wouldn't count them out at this stage by any means. So I think Iran is quite serious, and Iran has embarrassed all of the Arab states and the Arab leaders in those states by standing up for the people in Gaza and in Lebanon and elsewhere. And Syria, the tragedy is that what have the Arab leaders done? Quick answer is nothing. They're greedy, they're corrupt, and they're all the things that one reads in the Quran about bad rulers. I think a lot of them are on very thin ice. I keep hearing people talk about, when this is over, we'll rebuild in the Emirates and so forth. Well, we'll see. I have my doubts. And I think someone like Sisi is hanging on by a thread. And I don't think nBS, the famous crown prince, is on very solid ground right now. I think the Arab populations are furious with what's happened, and they're very angry, not just with what the Israelis have done, but with the inaction of their own governments. So I think Iran is in the spotlight. Iran is this heroic leader at the moment of the Islamic world. And remember, historically, that was always the Sunni Muslim Turks. The caliphate passed from Arab hands into Turkish hands quite early and remained there until the First World War, and then suddenly vanished out of sight. You know, I don't want to say that the caliphate is now passed into the hands of the Iranians, but what I am saying is the Shiite Iranians, much more than the Sunni, have been willing to stand up and say no and do something, whereas the others have done nothing. So I think it's real. How long will it last? What does it entail? I think it's a real question now. What do you do if you're sitting in the Oval Office? How long can you sit and wait? Well, maybe you can sit for a long time. If Mr. Besant continues to tell President Trump, well, we can just print more money, don't worry about it. I have serious doubts about that particular course of action, but maybe that's possible. Maybe we can just sit out there at sea. But if anybody looks at this blockade right now, we know that Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Indian ships are coming out of the Gulf. You know, oil is being transported out of there, and oil is being transported over land. So the notion that somehow or another Iran is now on the ropes, close to total starvation, misery, and so forth, that's a lot of nonsense. It isn't. Things may not be great in Iran, but they're not what President Trump seems to think. So I'm trying to figure out what this blockade does, because the ships that can't come out are those that are flagged with Israeli or American ownership or carrying something to us or to, Israel. So what is the blockade really doing? It looks to me like a panacea. I don't know what else to do right now. So I'm going to say I'm blockading and we're brilliant and we're killing all these little men in boats and so forth. And it doesn't seem to make any difference and nothing's changing. So at some point, what is President Trump going to do? Can he do nothing forever? Well, Rachel, you and I both know that the average American on the street could care less about this. However, the situation at home, conditions, inflation, prices rising, these things are only going to get worse in the months ahead. The long-term effects have not yet been felt from this closure of the Persian Gulf. They are going to be felt worldwide. We're going to be the targets of some of the pain as well. So he has to ask himself, how long do I wait? Do I wait for all these long-term effects to come in, wash over us, or do I try to find a way out? There is a way out, but it's unacceptable to him. And what he has to say is he has to tell the world, on humanitarian grounds, we must end this. We did not properly gauge the consequences of this. It is more important that the Gulf be open to the world than it is to me personally or to the United States right now in our dealings with Iran. That we need to come to some sort of arrangement that does that first and foremost, which is something I think the Iranians would accept. But then you're back to the Israeli problem. Israelis are not going to buy that. At least I don't think so. Do you?
I do not. And you're right. It always comes back to the Israeli problem at the end of the day. And kind of how you were describing, right? The Trump administration is in this position where if they let this continue, it's just going to get worse and worse. I know that they have midterm elections fast approaching. There's a lot at stake when it comes to the domestic situation, let alone the global situation, what it means for the overall economy. And Iran is in this position where they're like, oh, you want to continue this stalemate? Okay, we can continue. We can keep going. But I look at the U.S. and especially these reports that we've seen of munition shortages, because that's becoming a problem, not just in West Asia, but over where, when you look at Ukraine, when you look at Russia and its renewed attacks there, and it's like, we don't have the air defenses for any of this. So when it comes to the US, and I know that many of the neocons in Washington have these dreams of, oh, we're really going to ramp up the military industrial complex, those have not become a reality. So where does that leave the US in terms of being able to handle all of these endless wars? Because it seems like things are becoming worse and worse very quickly.
No, I think you're right. I sort of see President Trump, instead of being this very tough guy, decisive figure, I see him as a sort of in a state of siege. He really is having trouble making decisions. I mean, we go back to Ukraine. Remember all this, I can stop the Ukraine war on a phone call. What a dumb remark. But, that's the way it goes. When I last spoke to him directly on the phone, I received a call in April 2022. And he said, well, so-and-so told me you have a different view of Ukraine. What do you think about Ukraine? I said, sir, we need to end this war as soon as possible. What do you mean? I said, we need to stop this before this gets out of hand. You need to step forward and be the peacemaker, offer to whatever, broker peace, host a conference. Because if you don't, Ukrainians are going to be crushed. Really? Well, everybody here tells me that Ukrainians are winning. I said, sir, they have no more chance of winning than the Mexicans would of defeating the United States Armed Forces. It's a dumb thing to even consider, right? Well, that's the last conversation. Well, thanks very much. Click. And I think instead what you got is the Keith Kellogg view of the world. Just to give them a little bit more, they'll push over the finish line. I listened the other day to Dave Petraeus. Oh, it's a revolution in military affairs. These drones are just spectacular. I think it's now plausible that the war will be won by Ukrainian drones. Okay. I mean, the clown car just pulls up and a new set of clowns get out. and they say stupid crap. And then after a while, they sort of drift away. Another clown car pulls up. More clowns get out. I mean, that's my definition of the Trump administration. Nobody's thinking. It's all silly nonsense. They're all playing for time. There is no strategy. I run into people all the time, Rachel, say, oh, well, there's a plan. You have to understand there's a plan. This is 4D chess. And I said, so you mean 4D is the D stands for dumb? Right. There's nothing going on there. There is no plan. There's no coherent strategy. And, I think sometimes Trump does something. He decides to do something and says, let's see if this sticks, throws it against the wall. It's really tragic in Ukraine because the Russians, I think, believed or hoped that he was serious and that he was ready to sort of come to terms and build a new relationship. But they know that all of these Ukrainian long-range drone strikes have had the benefit of targeting data, satellite coverage, planning from us. This is the sad part. People don't seem to understand is, we fly these surveillance aircraft, we come back, we turn over reams of paper. Here you are, Mr. Zelensky or General Sersky or whoever it is. And it shows you every potentially useful target, refineries, gas pipelines, military installations, air defense batteries, whatever it is. You can't do that and then turn around and say that you're interested in reaching some sort of peace agreement and you're trying to be fair to Russia. Well, Trump doesn't seem to understand this. And I think the Russians conclude, well, he's not really in charge. I get that impression. The Russians have concluded, well, he may mean well, just like all the others we've talked to in the past, but he's not in charge. So then the question is, what do you do if you're in the Kremlin? And I think that's Mr. Putin's problem right now. Now, it's one thing to launch Oreshniks and devastating strikes. That's fine. Strikes alone do not win wars. If you don't follow up on the ground, it's sort of like cancer. If you don't go in with a scalpel and cut the tumor out, chances are very high the tumor will grow back. Well, that's Ukraine. And it's not as though the Russians don't have the forces, they don't have the capability, they do. Russia is stronger and more capable now than it's been in its history, certainly for at least the last 40 years. So there's nothing to stop them. And there are a lot of people who are angry because they know about the Europeans who are providing the components to these drones and assisting them to fly through their airspace to reach targets as similar to the ones we've seen outside of St. Petersburg or down near the Black Sea. So I don't know, but I think something needs to happen because you're now burning daylight. You lived there. June, July, August are extraordinarily important times for the Russians if you're going to act militarily. You wait until mid-September to do something and you're out of business for a couple of months or more. So I don't know. I keep waiting for the next proverbial shoe to drop, where it's going to be Zaporizhzhia, or are they going to strike right out of the east into the west near Kiev and move on Kiev? Are they going to come down out of Belarusia? They have concentrations of forces in all those areas. Ukrainians are at the end. They're pushing, shoving kids with weapons, old men with weapons into trenches, and they're being sacrificed. Why does this go on? Because nobody's gone into Kiev. You got to go in and root it out and be done with it. And I know there are concerns in Russia because we don't want to go to war with Europe. Well, of course not. But they don't seem to understand the Europeans have nothing to send. You know, what are they going to send? It's just like the British are sending a minesweeper.
Right.
What happened to the Royal Navy? I'm a little lost right now to really, people ask, what do you think's coming? What do you think? I said, well, logically, it should end this year in Ukraine. You know, and we logically should conclude that we cannot achieve militarily with the arms at our disposal what we set out to do, in which case we need to find a way to end this and get on with life. But those things presume rationality. I think the Russians are rational, maybe a little too cautious, but rational. I don't see any rationality in the White House.
And that's the scary thing, too, when you look at the fact that you have multiple conflicts here that the U.S. is not only actively losing, but going to lose, needs to back out of, needs to be done with. And then you look at the Trump administration and you go, okay, do you guys get this? I mean, the U.S. is in a weak position. As you were saying, Europe is in a weak position. And so then you look at Russia and you say, okay, now is the perfect time to make a move. And I know that up until this point, because this is a special military operation, that's what they have it classified it as. They have treated this as a war of attrition. It has been long and slow and grueling. But when you're getting to this point where it's like, okay, Ukraine is running out of men, out of air defenses, in a very weak position, and they have no one else to back them up. I mean, when you look at Russia, if you were giving them advice right now, or even just looking at their military planning, what would you be saying to them really about the treatment of NATO? Because I think there's a concern in Russia that NATO is going to go crazy and fully escalate this war, and we're going to be on the brink of some sort of a nuclear conflict.
Well, we know the British and the French have infiltrated some special ops teams and forces down into Odessa, into that region. But there's nothing more to send. And as far as a nuclear strike is concerned, that would be an invitation to complete disaster. You know, Britain itself would cease to exist. I think people know that. I don't think the Russians have to fall back on nuclear weapons. I think a non-nuclear Oreshnik strike is more than adequate to do the job if they have to do something like that. So I think at this point, if I were advising, I would say, I would take Odessa right away. I would cross that river and I would go down there and I would throw everybody who's in there out that doesn't belong there and get control of it. And that would draw a lot of attention. And by the time you're down there and you take it, it's probably time to move on Kiev. I would try to do this as quickly and as decisively as possible. That's what I would do. But I'm not a Russian and I'm not President Putin, and I don't know what other concerns he may have. I think his meetings with Xi went well, and I think he and Xi are pretty much on the same wavelength in terms of what they want to achieve, and they're willing to cooperate with each other. One of the good things that happened as a result of Trump's visit was that Trump came back and quickly said, forget this business about Taiwan. We don't want to go to war with Taiwan, and that doesn't make any sense. They're 100 miles away from Taiwan. We're 7,000 miles away. Well, hallelujah. I guess that suggests that Donald Trump is a graduate of the Iranian School of Military Affairs. He's figured this out. God bless him. Let's put this stupidity with China to bed. However, does that translate into any decisiveness in the Persian Gulf? Does that translate into decisiveness in Ukraine? I don't know. I just know that if you look at the maps and you look at where the distribution of forces are, this is something the Russians can do. They can do it. They can do it sequentially, simultaneously, near simultaneously, whatever they want. They have no shortage of missiles, no shortage of rockets, no shortage of ammunition. Ukrainians, of course, suffer from the opposite. And yes, their first-person drones are a serious problem, but they're not a game changer, contrary to popular belief. The Russians have learned how to defeat them, and they've done so very well. Again, it's a matter for decision at their level, and I'm hesitant to advise them to do anything, but I would like to see this happen. I don't see any good coming out of this for anybody. I don't celebrate the deaths of Ukrainian or Russian soldiers. I think anybody that does that is an idiot. This is bad, period. Bad for Europe, bad for the world. It needs to stop. When you go down to the Persian Gulf, you're dealing really with the Israeli problem. Are you going to step up to the plate? Are you going to say, thank you very much, we've gone as far as we can, it's not in our interest to go further? We're looking at perhaps 6% inflation before the fall. We just don't know. You know, our bond market is very fragile. If you look at the bond market in London, that's already hit 5%. We're moving up closer and closer to 5%. Most of the people that are experts, like Gundlach or Ray Dalio or Luke Groman, all of these people that watch the bond markets carefully, they know you hit 5%, everything starts to fall apart. And the Fed's not in control anymore. The interest rates are going to rise whether they like it or not. So the bottom line is, it's in everybody's interest, I think, to end the war in the Persian Gulf. It may not be in the interest of international Israeli and Jewish finance and power, but for everybody else, yeah, it needs to stop.
And the hope is that they get that message before they go any further. And that's really the last thing I wanted to bring up when it comes to the Trump administration. And it feels as though they've been on the cliff of fully returning to this war for weeks now, right? We keep getting up to the brink and then we back down a little bit. Every week Trump comes out and says, oh, we're on the verge of a deal. We've got something figured out. And then you look at the U.S. and you're going, oh, the U.S. military is sending an awful lot of cargo flights to the region, right? There's a lot of movement happening there. So what are your concerns for the U.S. doing the wrong thing, escalating this war, and then it truly reaching the point of no return?
I think the Israelis will move and do pretty much what they want, regardless of what President Trump has asked. When that happens, the Iranians will respond. And then I think the pressure will be on President Trump to side with Israel against Iran yet again in another round of destructive attacks. So I think that will probably happen. I just don't see us able to reach any sort of reasonable outcome. When I say reasonable, I mean it's admitting to a large extent that whatever you set out to do, you can't do. You know, the Romans discovered this. They had this border with Iran. The Germanic tribes were not conquerable. You couldn't conquer them. You might have temporary success, but you weren't going to conquer them and settle them. Well, that was also true with Persia. The Romans ran into a serious opposition from Persia, and they suffered defeats at the hands of the Persians on the scale of the defeats administered to them by the Germans.
Isn't the memorandum of understanding signed by Presidents Trump and Pezeshkian essentially a U.S. capitulation?
Yeah, there's no question about that. Basically, the memorandum of understanding that was signed on June 17th reflects the coercive balance of power at the time. And there is no question that by June 17th, the coercive balance of power decisively favored the Iranians over the United States, which is why Trump signed this deal, which was basically a surrender document. Anybody who's looked at all of the points, 14 points in the document, understands clearly that the Iranians have won on virtually every issue. And the reason this is the case is because we lost the war.
Here's, of all people, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor to President Biden for the 4 years that President Biden was in the White House, basically saying the Iranians outsmarted Trump's real estate agents. Cut number 3.
If you just look at how they work the wording of the agreements they do, they are highly detail-oriented, not just because they're lawyerly, but because they want to extract benefits from those details. Just one example from the MOU. The provision that says the U.S. would waive sanctions refers to oil, and then there's this little clause that says, and derivatives. What are derivatives? The petrochemical sector. That is the second largest sector in Iran. Now, do I think the U.S. really even understood what it was signing with that? Maybe not, but Iran knew it would get billions and billions of dollars just by inserting that word. And that's why you bring a very large delegation, because you're looking for every advantage in this highly complex, detailed negotiation. And I think as long as they're bringing that expertise and we're only bringing a couple guys, it will be advantage Iran.
They're bringing expertise, he's being charitable, and we're bringing two New York City real estate agents.
I actually think this is all nonsense. I think that basically he's arguing that we were fleeced, that it was inexperience that produced this document, this surrender document. It wasn't the fact that we were fleeced. It reflected the balance of coercive power. Look, those documents that were floated around before we reached an agreement on the final memorandum of understanding on June 17th.
And the final is almost the same as the initial that they proposed.
Yes, it is. But, we proposed a counter document, right? There were a number of documents floating around. There were endless negotiations on these documents. I find it hard to believe that we didn't look over every word. And the reason that we had to swallow all of these provisions that were to Iran's advantage and our disadvantage was because the balance of coercive power decisively favored the Iranians.
So how did Iran defeat the United States and Israel? How do you make sense out of Iran's